September 18th COSAC meeting. We'll start our meeting with a question on if the agenda, is anything changed on the agenda? Are we good?
Did you see my email?
Yes.
About item number 3?
Okay.
I just would like to continue that. I wasn't quite ready to get finalized.
Okay, so we'll plan to continue item 3 to the next meeting.
Okay.
Anything else?
Other than that, I think that's all. If Councilwoman Buse is not here, Stephen can give us an update.
Great. That sounds great. Okay, then without objection, we'll adopt the agenda as modified. And then the minutes, we have...
May I add
Yeah, go ahead.
Thing, to the minutes? One thing that could be helpful is there was a overview this last week of what the state's trail goals are. And with Landis here, I was wondering if we may give him just a minute to update us on that. That might help reflect what our goals are trail-wise.
So as far as the agenda goes?
Yeah. I think it would take 3 minutes or something.
Okay. Does that work for everyone? We'll give Landis a few minutes on the agenda. Is that something you want to do towards the beginning or the end?
I do it prior to item number 6.
Okay. So maybe a 5B.
Okay.
Great. Okay, anything else? As far as the minutes, we have minutes from the last 2 meetings to consider. Did everyone get a chance to take a look at those? Any questions or concerns, edits, or otherwise? Okay, hearing none, I'll also say that without objection, we'll adopt the minutes as prepared for the last 2 meetings. And we are continuing item 3 for our next meeting, and then item 4. How would you like to do that?
Yeah, so Catherine presented the application to the county council. There wasn't any objections of the application format itself, but the council expressed some desire to get an update from the committee and the processes and steps that overall the committee would like to establish. And so they've asked that at the next meeting, which would be on Tuesday next week, that a representative would come and report to the county council kind of about the process that has been considered and steps that are being taken and kind of where we're at.
Great. And so, and then I think my reply said that I would be available to do that. So any questions from committee members? Obviously, anyone can come and join us and chime in or support that update. But yeah, any other questions in that regard? Does that sound good to everyone? I didn't hear otherwise, but just want to double check. Okay. So
That meeting is at 5:30?
it is
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
And I'm assuming we'll hear back from Councilwoman Buse, just confirming maybe that it's on the agenda and that it has a set time or something to that effect.
I'll email the county has a staff member, Micah Safton, and I'll email him and make sure that it gets put on the agenda, and then I'll just confirm with you prior to or probably Monday, and just make sure so that you know the time.
Great. Yeah, that'd be
Or at least the approximate time. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly when we'll get to the item.
okay. And so I think, you know, the overview I would anticipate making to the council would involve, you know, just talking about what's happened since we were formed and the meetings that we've held, the work that we've been doing, and then maybe just as a framework of the application process that we're envisioning for this and what we've completed and what we're continuing to work on, that makes sense. Any other important items committee members think I should raise with the council or anything like that?
You know, it'd be good to get a blessing on the phase 1 application
Yeah.
if they're ready for that.
Agreed. That'd be great. I'll ask for that, and obviously let them know that our intent is for a 2-stage application process, and we're still working on the 2nd stage particulars. And we expect that this application process and framework will evolve over time as we learn more and just get underway with some of this initial work, so.
It'd be nice to know if they wanted to have, you know, we're talking about our criteria. As you know, I've got some real reservations about a scorecard, et cetera. Simply because we don't have enough data points, we don't have anything statistically backing it. I think we've got some risks there. I'd like to know if they would be okay if we just did a judgmental review of each of these applications, since there's going to be so few, versus do they want to have nailed down criteria?
I hope they'd let us go ahead. I think the nailed down criteria will evolve so much as we go along. It wouldn't be as useful now as later.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with having a criteria, but final judgment shouldn't really rely upon that. But we'll collect the data so that we can build
Right.
that criteria.
Right. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying, Jody, and I too hope that, you know, it's not gonna be as clear cut as, oh, you scored 89, so you didn't make the cut, and you scored a 90, and so you did. Something like, I don't think it'll be quite that definitive. In the end, the scoring should
Subjectively,
be a
there might be a reason for
tool.
the 89.
Exactly. It should be a tool to help inform our decision-making, but not sort of like the Bible on what's in or what's
Yeah,
out.
I just don't want it to be something that we're declining this application because you scored a 53.
Right.
Maybe in a year, we'd be closer to something concrete, but even then, it's
Well,
gonna be
we're
judgment.
talking, wouldn't it be great if we had 5 applications this year?
Yeah,
That's
Take
just
a
not
while.
enough to,
yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, part of having a scoring system in place, in my mind, has always been because I'm assuming we're gonna have we're gonna have more applications than we have funding. And somehow some are gonna have to drop out. But we won't know until we
Yeah.
open that door.
yeah.
So, okay, good. That's good suggestions, yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like staff to help you prepare or to report?
I don't think so. I mean, my natural inclination, if I'm going to a meeting to give a presentation, I'll put a little PowerPoint together or something like that, just to help. But I don't know if that's too much, you know, formality with the council. I mean, this is a pretty straightforward point in the process. There's not a lot of complications to it, so I may not put the effort into doing that, but.
I'll just, if we can help out in any way in getting anything put together, or
I think having access to our documents and our files, if we need to pull them up or something, would be the main thing.
okay, yeah, we can definitely do that.
All right. Anything else on that item, committee members? Okay, if not, let's roll to number 5. What can you tell me about number 5?
Yeah, so the Cash Summit is coming up on November 2nd, and this is a conference, you can say, for planners, either in the public or private sector, or really for anyone who wants to know kind of what plans are happening or what goals Cache County has. And so we want a report from the COSAC committee about what's happening in our group, what we're hoping for. And so if anyone would be available, and we don't know exactly what time this presentation will happen yet, but those details are coming. But if anyone's interested in giving a brief overview, we would love that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure I could probably fill in for that
Okay,
as needed, so.
okay, yeah, and we'll have more details.
Anyone else who wants to volunteer to?
Not that, I think it'd be great if you do the presentation, I'd love to be there. Got that.
Okay. Perfect.
No, let's see, that's more or less been an all-day thing, right?
Yeah, I think the last meeting they said it was gonna be from 8 to 1 this year, or 1:30, so.
There was an adding just after lunch this year.
Okay, so item 5B then. If we're done with 5,
Yep.
okay. Yeah, let's have Landis come up and tell us a little bit about the state's intention, and this may be the first time some of our committee members have met you, so maybe a little introduction first, Landis, would be great.
Sure. So I'm Landis Widener. I am the county's Regional Trails and Active Transportation Coordinator. So I oversee the county's trail program within the Development Services Department. I support the CMPO as primarily for them. I serve as the Active Transportation Planner for the CMPO,
Joe is what?
the Cache Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then I also support most of the cities in the county. We have a program where they can pay in a small amount based on their population, and that goes to funding the program, so funding my budget. And in return, I essentially become staff for the cities, can help on projects through seeking grants, through helping them plan, managing contracts with trail developers, running public meetings, stuff like that. So that's in a nutshell what I do. And then for the Utah Trail Network, this is the governor's brainstorm to create a UDOT maintained, managed, and built network of trails throughout the state that connect communities, neighborhoods, towns, and cities. So this was approved. There's $45 million set aside this year in the budget for this, and then another $45 million this year and ongoing. So $90 million this year, and then $45 million in the following years to develop this network. UDOT sees it as essentially creating another highway system, but instead of for cars, for bikes, strollers, micro-mobility, like skateboards, scooters, rollerblades, and then walkers and joggers, to create alternative means of transportation to get people through their communities and to neighboring communities. So the requirements for this trail are that it will be paved and 12 feet wide. That's just the UDOT standard regulations. They're working on developing another further standards as they're taking on a whole network instead of where they now just build trails here and there and then have cities or counties take on ownership and maintain those. Since they're maintaining, they're looking at a much more in-depth set of construction standards that they're going to apply if they don't have all those details figured out yet. But we know they're looking for connections that are regionally significant. So that'll be longer trails connecting cities and towns, or providing gaps in existing trail networks. So right now they're in the planning process of developing a master plan of where they want these routes to go throughout the state. And they don't have any specifics or guarantees right now. But I know they're looking at the potential for taking on existing trails that might not be in their right of way, but buying that right of way from cities or counties, taking on existing trails. Then there'll be questions of how do they get them up to their standards. A lot of trails that have been built are 8 or 10 feet wide, so they would need to be widened to meet the Utah Trail Network standards. Let me just see if there's anything else relevant to share. They're wanting to make sure this accommodates a broad range of users. So there's going to be questions that they're going to address in these standards of maybe speed limits, especially are e-bikes allowed, and if so, how fast can they go? Will there be any striping on these paths? When there's comes to intersections, are there going to be specific design standards that they need to meet for the intersections to give priority to the trail users, or create some elevated safety for people on the trails to cross streets, especially busier streets? One thing that we did learn that was significant is they're not primarily interested in trails along roads. They're not interested in those, but they are looking for the best routes to connect to centers of commerce, other points of interest, and then tie those into neighborhoods. Direct, safe, comfortable. So that's, I think, where it could be relevant here. Part of the requirements for them to start on projects, they would like to see projects, especially the first couple of years, they'll want to see projects that are shovel ready. That's where they want to put their funding. They're going to have to spend a lot of the initial funding on equipment and stuff like that to get themselves ready to maintain and build a network of trails, something UDOT hasn't done before. So buying plows and equipment to build. So the funding that they can set aside to building trails, they want those to be low-hanging fruits, pretty much sure things, so they can have some early, easy wins to show the public where this funding is going to a good cause before using it. So they're looking for projects that have feasibility studies completed and don't have any right-of-way issues. So if the cities and counties can do that ourselves, do some feasibility studies, and then secure the right-of-way, then that would make it a lot more appealing for UDOT. When they want to come in and there's a project that's ready to go, they just have to come in and build it. All that details are already worked out prior. That's what they're looking for in the first couple of years. I think that's everything we know so far. Any questions?
They are, sorry, just one last thing. They do have a website, which we can send out a link.
Yeah.
And on that, they are accepting public input and comment on destinations or routes that you believe trails should be, and they're going to compile that information and review it and try to select corridors or destinations based on that public feedback and other planning principles.
Yeah.
I'm new to trails, but when I hear 12-foot wide paved, it sounds like a highway network with vehicle restrictions. Is that what people think of in trails in Cache County?
I think a good example of those wider trails are some of those in the St. George area. Murdoch Trail, is that close to 12 feet wide? I mean, those are
Probably is
some of
12
the biggest, the most popular ones in the state. How wide is Bear Lake? Do you happen to know?
Not 12 feet.
I think it's 10.
The one around
6
the
feet, something like
south
that.
end of Bear Lake.
Logan did along
Here you've got the golf course trail through
10 or 12. Logan River Trails, yeah.
paved, but it's narrower.
I think a good example of one in Cache County is the new Logan River Trail from the heads, what direction is that? West from the dog park that goes to Trapper Park. That is a wider section.
Yes.
the purpose, UDOT wants to create these trails mostly for transportation. And so there's been a lot of studies that show that people generally need about 3 feet to feel comfortable walking. And so if you have a 6-foot lane that allows 2 people to walk comfortably next to each other, but that also allows opportunities for bicyclists and stuff to have room to pass and maneuver around individuals. So these trails are going to be the most robust and highest capacity trails in the state. The trails that we'll be looking at as this committee, I think, will vary depending on what the circumstances are. But yeah, the UDOT trail system, because of the high capacity nature that they're wanting to achieve, 12 feet is their goal.
I can see that in some areas. I don't know, Cache County, I would kind of hate to see all the money get absorbed on 2 miles of highway other than 50 miles of wilderness trail or something personally. But I know there's a place for it. I do know that, yeah.
Yeah, and to his point, they're focused primarily on the connection, that transportation. Can someone go to the grocery store by bike instead of by car?
Sure.
But they do understand that these are also going to be used as recreation amenities and need to be maintained as such as well.
Yeah.
So it'll be both, but their focus and their standards and stuff will be looking at the transportation aspect.
What about safety? I kind of agree with the 12-foot wide deal, knowing that ATVs and stuff and UTVs are gonna use that. Plus with electric bikes now, how fast they can go. And, you know, I don't know if there's ever gonna be a speed limit or what, or any way to even, I don't think there's even a way to do that, but that's gonna be a part of the problem, especially if you go to something that big.
Yeah, so the Murdoch Trail is a good example of this, where that trail does have a speed limit. And it was actually put in after some casualties from a bike collision that weren't even e-bikes, just hardcore recreational cyclists going really fast and having a head-on collision. And so then the Murdoch Trail put in a speed limit, and it's also closed to motor vehicles. I don't know if bike lanes are allowed, or e-bikes are allowed on that or not. But the managers, it's managed by the canal company, the Provo Water Users Association. And the guy I talked to said that it pretty much polices itself, where the trail gets used so regularly that if there's any misbehavior, then the cops are called right away and come out to report. So if there is an ATV or a truck driving down the trail, which happens, the authorities know about it really quick.
It's a very heavily.
Yeah, that's one of the most used trails in the whole state.
Where is it?
It goes almost from
Provo
the mouth
to,
of Provo Canyon, ends at near Thanksgiving Point, and then
Yeah, and then it connects to the Jordan River.
yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, for sure. Yeah. I just wondered in Cache County.
Yeah, or maybe another way to ask that question, which was what I had in mind, is Landis, I mean, have you considered this program in light of our master plan for trails in the county, and what trails would, have you made a list of like what trails might work best for this program?
Yeah, we actually do have a list, and so Stephanie Tomlin is the new Trails Director for UDOT, overseeing this whole program. And she and I have worked together on other things in the past. So she said she'll be reaching out to me, and I'll be involved in the planning process for Cache County.
They've hinted, we were at a meeting with them last week, and UDOT hinted that as they look at prioritization lists within the county, that they'll be looking towards Landis and the county master plan as kind of as a guide for what deserves priority and what they should emphasize.
So what trails may we be familiar with here in the valley that might fit that bill?
Or potential.
Yeah.
I think they're potentially interested in the Logan River Trail. I think it's either close or would already fit their requirements. There's the CMPO has recommended, and UDOT has talked about a trail along the 8991 corridor, going all the way from the Y to Brigham City eventually. And I think that'd be a great one where you'd want higher capacity. You'd have lots of recreationalists use that, and potentially people that want to get to Logan from Nibley or Wellsville, especially if e-bikes are allowed on it. And then we're proposing the Blacksmith Fork River, putting a trail on there to parallel and connect to the Logan River. So we have that continuity along the Logan River and the Blacksmith Fork River of this paved wide trail. And then that would provide a connection through Nibley, Logan, Providence, Millville, and Hiram. And then we already have feasibility studies conducted, pretty preliminary, but still closer than other projects we have in the county, for a trail along 165 from Hiram to Paradise and along 91 from Smithfield to Richmond. So those I see as the lowest hanging fruit we have. There's definitely need. There's already some recreation happening between Hiram and Paradise, and there's not a great place for it that's very safe. So that'd be a high priority for me. And then a trail from Smithfield to Richmond is one I get asked about a lot, and as Richmond grows, I think that demand will only increase. So those are some off the top of my head that I've thrown out.
As far as this committee, the land acquisition is going to be the same if it's 12 feet or 6 feet.
Yeah, the
Basically.
question I have is, the state, I believe, is planning to acquire the land as part of that, so, I mean, I wouldn't want to be redundant on what the state's looking to do. It's almost like, how can we augment that? In other words, stems off of that.
Yeah, the logical, I mean, based on the description, the logical role would still be in, acquiring the right-of-way initially, because it sounds like UDOT wants that to be available.
Would they buy it then from us?
The funding for the Utah Trail Network set aside for that doesn't have a lot of strings attached. One of them is it can't be used for eminent domain. It can't be used for land acquisition. This is where I wasn't super clear. And there might be, if the landowner's willing to do it, then they can build there.
That's our charter too.
Yeah, so either way, we'll need a willing landowner, but it sounds like it'd be easier if the county took on that, or the cities took on that, especially the first couple of years.
Consolidation of a corridor.
Yeah.
From multiple owners, which is, I think, how we've seen our role with this program.
Would we be reimbursed for that as the state takes that?
That's a good question.
Because I know they're willing to make that acquisition themselves, so.
I think they want to have the right-of-ways
They want to own it?
regardless.
Fee
That's
simple.
what it sounded like.
Yeah, UDOT does want to own and maintain these trail
Yeah.
systems. And so one thing that I had thought of, that when we're looking at open space proposals and we're thinking of that trail aspect, we could potentially look at this plan to see if that's something that we should factor in. And because it is possible that UDOT could help offset some of the costs of that preservation area.
So if it's on the open space side, not necessarily the trail side, but if it's on the open space side,
Yeah.
and we had them come in as part of that.
Yeah, so they could potentially, we could do the open space portion of it, and they could pay for the right of way for the trail space that would go along with that.
That's an 89-91 type of play.
Project, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Then in our planning too, the master planning would be important. Maybe we look at connectors to that and
Yeah.
feeders to that, and how it all connects together.
And then the community becomes like really,
Yeah.
Other questions for Landis, or?
Maybe it's not a question for Landis, but let's say we did buy an easement and the state wanted to come in, can we reinvest those funds?
Yeah, I think those are some questions we have.
Yeah.
Is there a role for our program in that process, or, it sounds like
Where
we
we
have some
keep-
questions, and we'll probably get some feedback at some point here.
yeah, where we could keep it rolling forward.
Yeah, or be that first step
You're right.
in a project that they would, see as a high priority for everyone. Hey, we've already got the right of way or
That
land.
might be written into the bond language or the ordinance or something.
Okay, anything else? Great.
Anything else on other trails besides the UDOT trails that you'd like us to consider?
The county trails master plan is my charge, so any help I can get on that is greatly appreciated. Priorities are always Bonneville Shoreline Trail. Specifically, planning on trying to move ahead north of Logan, trying to get a continuous trail all the way through Smithfield. And I'm planning on talking to some landowners around Smithfield soon about figuring out a path through there. And then, yeah, I think where there's questions with this one still and not clear, they have a timeline, but it's dependent on a lot of things, and it might be an ambitious timeline. And even when they get a plan done, there's only gonna be so much money coming to cash. $90 million across the whole state isn't actually a lot. We're not gonna expect to get most of it. We'll hope to get our fair share. But so then other projects that are regionally significant that we don't anticipate the state doing or doing anytime soon, I think would be high priorities, like a trail on Mendon Road. I don't know if the state would be as interested in that one, but as a county, I know it's our most heavily biked road in the whole county, and there's not really the width for that. And as traffic increases, we need a better solution. So that would be another priority that I have. But yeah, thanks for the question.
And I think, our process, I think that we're headed towards is, obviously we have the master plan and GIS. As projects come to us, I mean, we'll be able to see how those properties relate to the master plan, and if there's been a line on a map through that property, we'll know about it.
Yeah.
And are interested in projects that involve trails along, that would help fulfill the master plan, so.
Yeah, we're also working on the Blacksmith Fork corridor right now, trying to get a plan, trying to get some landowner buy-in for that, so any support.
Well, when you say any support, what does that mean?
I know there's probably at least one landowner that's gonna be applying for some bond funding. So, yeah, just having your 2 cents to say, like, we want a trail here, that's something you'd be willing to consider, would be great. And yeah, and then making the connection for any other landowners that do come in along these significant corridors. Yeah, I can only have my ear to the ground so much, so having other people with their eyes and ears out for me is always really good.
Okay, all right, appreciate your time, Landis.
One more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Trail planning in general. I live in Providence, the Bonneville shoreline. Well, there's a trail anyway. I don't know how official it is, but it's used quite a bit. But the only actual public access is at Providence Canyon and Dry Canyon, I think. What are the planners' thoughts on more public accesses through proposed developments or something? Because sometimes the public roads are not very far from the trail.
Yeah, and I know there is a private access currently in Providence, and my understanding is Providence City has plans to make that official as that develops, to get a real trailhead built up there. I haven't heard more than that.
Trailhead at Providence Canyon?
No, so there's, I forget who the landowner is, but in between, almost halfway, I think, there's a landowner that has a gate and lets people cross his property, and my understanding is it's gonna be developed sometime the next couple of years, and Providence is aware and plans on having them build a trailhead as part of that development.
That people can walk to the trail, they don't have to drive to the trail.
Yeah, that's, that would be the idea. And then I know Logan has a property, it might be pretty close to Dry Canyon though, where they want to do a park with a more official trailhead with amenities and such, to provide better access on that end as well. That's what I'm aware of now. From my perspective, more neighborhood access points is always better, and we're seeing more that happen north, like Logan and upward. Like Hyde Park's building some BST right now, and they're being very intentional with that. So hopefully that'll become the trend everywhere.
Okay. Thank you, Landis.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, on to item number 6. And Annika helped us and got everything posted. Hopefully folks have had some time to look through these items. We've got the level 1 application that we approved at our last meeting. And wanted to start at this meeting with review and discussion on the trails application. So, yeah, do you want to
Yeah,
take it from there, Annika?
I can do that. So Eric came to me, well, through email earlier about some changes. So those are shown on the printouts and what I have on the screen. And so I guess, do we want to do it the same as we did last time? We just go section by section and you guys critique it and I'll fill it in?
Yeah, what do you think, committee members?
I think that worked really well last time, the methodology.
Yeah, so let's do that.
Okay, perfect. So in section A, similar to what was on the level 1, instead of having the property owner names, we'll have the municipality applying, and then the contact name and phone number from that municipality. Is that good with everyone?
Yeah, I think so.
And then these are the same questions from before. Is the property in Cache County? And they can say yes or no. Is the landowner or owners willing? The property owner should be engaged in the conservation of the property and willing to enter into good faith negotiations with the county. Again, yes or no?
I'm just not sure on that word conservation of the property where this is a trail. It's almost, we could almost just say, is the landowner willing and willing to enter into good faith negotiations with the county? This isn't like they're putting it, conserving it in the same way, but.
Yeah, I like that shorten change others. So we'll say the landowner is willing and
Will enter?
and
Yeah, the double willing's a little interesting. Yeah, will enter, that's what she's got there now, and will enter into good faith negotiations with the county.
okay.
But it's not necessarily that they're gonna enter in negotiations with us, they're entering in negotiations with the municipality most likely. It may be the county.
Why would the landowner not be involved in situations?
Oh, I'm saying the landowner is involved, but they're not necessarily talking to us. They might be talking to North Logan. Or they might be talking to Lewiston or something like that. That's who, we're just helping with funding. We're not necessarily the negotiator on that thing. Unless Landis brings us a deal in the county property.
So who are you saying is the negotiator here?
The municipality that's going to hold the easement. So if Logan City comes and they're looking for a piece of property, a BST piece of property, we're not the negotiator on that. The city would be.
Would none of these come from private landowners that maybe just want to connect or offer an access point to a public trail?
I don't think we want that if the city's not taking that on, that responsibility on, or the county or the city's not taking that responsibility on. Because someone has to hold the easement on that.
And the liability.
That's true.
And the liability. It needs to be recorded, and for the recording purpose, that's why we want a municipality involved in this.
How's that different though than open space? There's always somebody else
Because the
involved.
landowner in the end is gonna both own it and Bear River Land Conservancy or something's gonna take that responsibility, not the county, not a municipality. If there's an easement, it's not gonna be a municipality. It could be, but
Could
that's
be,
not likely.
it could be.
It could be, and could these not be somebody other than a municipality?
What would be an example of that for a
I don't
trail?
know. I'm just asking, something in the county, which is not really a municipality, a trail that's part of an open space application that's held by Bear River. I just wonder if that never happens, I don't know.
I would assume it'd go through the county more than,
Yeah.
I don't see many times that happens. County really doesn't want to be involved because they don't get the liability.
Yeah, I don't know of a
That
trail
time.
that's in our network that isn't owned, the easement or the property isn't owned by a government entity.
Yeah,
So who owns the easement?
Well, the city owns some easements.
Yeah.
Logan City owns some easements through properties for
Yeah,
trails.
I understand that, but I mean, you're asking for an easement for a trail
Mhm.
and the county or the city's gonna own that?
Yeah.
And the county's the only one that would have the liability concerns if it is a trail. The city's not gonna have that.
The city has lots of trails.
I know, but they don't have but they go through the county. The county has the ability for the liability. I don't see cities that have liability for open trails, unless I'm wrong.
Logan River Trail,
Logan River Trail's
would
owned
think-
by Logan, and Logan has the liability,
that's what I
right?
would think.
Yeah.
So where's the liability there?
I don't know what your question is exactly.
It used to be that when you did a trail and stuff, try to give you an example, just in Logan, the county would take care of the liability for that, no matter where it was, because it was in part of the county. So they picked up the liability for you, the ability to have a trail and for people to have access to it. They haven't had the liability issue.
I don't know. I know that the city and municipalities are the ones that,
Typically, if it's like, I think a good example is Hiram has the Blacksmith Fork Trail that goes up the canyon. And the Hiram City owns that and has the liability for anything that takes place on that trail. I mean, they own the underlying property. A lot of times cities, like I know Nibley City has worked out some agreements with their local canal company to put trails along that canal. And they've entered into agreements about what type of circumstances is their liability and who shares that liability. And
Would that
so
only be within city limits?
it can go, Nibley City actually owns a trail that is outside of their city limits. It's actually within Millville. That trail system that is next to the river, that's right next to Ridgeline High School, that's actually a Nibley City trail.
interesting.
There's the road that had to go through, the city owned that space and got it with grant fund for open space. And so when they put the road through, they had to exchange that for an equivalent piece of property. And so they did property along the river. So Nibley owns that, but it's technically within Millville city boundaries. But-
So there's a state law that deals with
Exactly.
recreational use.
Right.
And that's statewide.
Yep.
And, you know, if you're not, more or less, my understanding, my limited understanding, if you're not charging a fee on it, you're not liable for, you know, the activities that take place on that property, so.
Right.
Yes, that's generally true.
So, and I didn't look at this with the anticipation of liability. I just know that we would rather have a municipality responsible for this in the end than,
Individual landowners.
yeah, individual landowner.
And that word includes the county?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I think if it's going on county land, in other words, Richmond to Smithfield, Landis comes, he's representing the municipality. Of the county as a
The county.
municipality.
Okay.
So the next question is,
Can I go back to that
Yeah.
one? We say here that the landowner is willing to enter into good faith negotiations with the county,
Or they,
or the,
or municipality, yeah.
it should probably be municipality. Well, okay, but on that, is willing or they are in negotiations?
Yeah, I think you brought up last time that we almost want them to have this worked out before they bring it to us.
Yeah.
This is coming from our previous application. It's just a carryover.
I'm just thinking that,
Or it could be has entered in good faith negotiations with the municipality or the county.
or is
Has
it,
or is willing to.
What's that?
Has or is willing to. And that gets both of them.
That would work.
I'd like it to be a little bit further down the road than somebody talking at the local gas station, hey, do you think you'd be willing to do this? And then when we get to the price tag, et cetera, it's not feasible.
Okay. Edits.
so the next question, property has a clear title, the appropriate title and ownership are free of disputes or any other conflicts. That one I feel like
Seems relevant.
is straightforward. Are you aware of any legal disputes or conflicts relating to the property or proposed project? If yes, please describe.
Okay,
That might be a problem with the next section. If you answered no, you're ineligible.
And we can take that off
In
if
this
we
case,
don't.
if you answer yes, you might be ineligible.
Yeah, we just
Oh,
pull
for
that off.
last one, yeah,
Or just change the
yeah.
tense.
center of it.
So,
Do without it altogether, right?
Yeah. It is on our other one and the same question is there, so we do have that language conflict currently on our other one. Maybe we propose that we change that as well on that.
so it should be if you answer yes to any of these questions, your application is ineligible?
No, it's,
Depends on the question.
it depends on which question it is.
So the top three questions, it would be applicable to, right? But then that fourth one, are you aware of any legal disputes?
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
Want that to be answered no, is hopefully. So we could potentially bump that caveat up?
Uh-huh.
That make sense?
Yes. So above the are you aware of any
Yeah.
legal? Okay.
Is that okay for folks?
Yep.
On that disputes or conflicts, I'm just kind of thinking, putting a banker's hat on. If they currently have the property encumbered, usually the bank may request some of those proceeds, or the bank would say, yeah, county, you can take an easement on it, but you're subject to our lien, which I don't think we would be willing to do.
No, I think that's why we want this, at least something disclosed that way. That's gonna be a good question all the way through and a good thing to remember all the way through on these is whether a lien is being held on anything that we're doing.
How about let's add encumbrances,
Which,
legal disputes, encumbrances, or conflicts.
And that, you know,
Then that picks up, yes, I have a loan on it.
and you almost need to have that removed, don't you?
Well, or negotiated.
Okay.
And where we're moving the other comment, no, this is it's not a criteria, yes, no, we would consider it. But we need to know that it's on the front end.
So you have a banking background, correct? So if, this is just a scenario I'm aware of, there's a piece of property, there's a lack of a trail connection, one person would make that trail connection. for, 5 miles one way, 5 miles the other way. If that if the municipality, let's say North Logan City, goes and gets that, what is their risk? Do they need to?
In the event of a default by the underlying owner, and the bank forecloses on it and sells it to you, then that wipes out that easement.
But what isn't the easement is filed on the property?
It is, but it's a priority issue. So if the bank's lien is in first and the easement is in second, then if the bank forecloses in first, either the second has to buy out the first, or they lose their priority, or they lose that right.
Yeah, that's something.
It's kind of like a second mortgage.
I think that we'll want to understand that as we go through this.
Yeah.
Better.
What would typically, what would a bank do? Because somebody like, in this case, the county, we don't want to be secondary.
Well, what you'd have to do is you'd have to go and ask the bank for a subordination
On that.
on that.
On the easement.
On the easement, which means that if the bank subordinates their trust deed, then the trust deed literally moves into second position and your easement moves into first. So it would perpetually always be there.
And they don't necessarily do that out of the goodness of their heart?
No, if they do, they would say, we want some of the proceeds from that easement.
Yeah.
Because if I put an easement on there, it's probably going to reduce the value of my underlying collateral. So they want to be.
And it would just reduce the loan amount for
Yes.
whoever the
Yes.
holder is.
Yeah.
So they're not necessarily worse off.
No.
Okay, makes sense.
So did you?
So yeah,
Great.
I
Okay, all right.
added encumbrances here.
Great. Okay.
Anything else that you feel should be in section A?
I think that's a good start.
Okay. Section B, property information, project name, address or location, municipality or nearest city, parcel
Municipality or
numbers.
nearest city, does this need to stay on here where we are, I guess it would if it's the county submitting it and it's going between two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parcel numbers, total acres, total linear feet of proposed trail, and then reason for preservation
Parcel number, I wonder if that's covered by the next section.
in that chart.
Yes. Where we'll have a list of parcel numbers if there's multiple. There could only be one, right?
Should we consider the wording there, reason for preservation? Is that the right word?
I don't think that's, maybe describe the purpose of,
Basically, how does it fit into the master trails plan?
yeah.
Project purpose, describe the project purpose.
Well, how does it fit into the plan?
And we do come up with that later, so we could even, yeah, we could almost strike it for here and have it come into the later area.
Yeah,
Let's get rid of all that.
What do you have some stuff over here, but priest has described the type and condition. How does it contribute? Yeah, I don't mind still being a question, something statement there, just kind of like give us an overview or something, you know.
well, but I'm thinking in C, where you start talking about the master trail, or city trail master plan. I'd like to assume that the new section of trail attaches to existing sections of trail.
How does the project, how does the proposed project?
I think I'd like the highest level type of question we could have. We'd ask for project name, and it's just kind of like,
To the county trails master plan.
What about going a little bit of a different direction? Existing trails connected to this easement, that would be connected to this easement.
it does get into that in these additional questions.
Yeah, under C.
But just
The
high
proposed
level,
properties contribute to the connection of previously unconnected communities. Okay, that's not necessarily
I kind of like them.
I just think if it's an overall description, that would include that.
well, it just be, this would be a extension of the shoreline trails between Smithfield and Richmond, connecting at this point and continuing north.
I'd love that description.
Project description.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, please describe the proposed.
I think we just call it something as simple as a project description,
Okay.
and please describe the project.
but you know, it's a great little quarter-mile stretch out in Benson that doesn't really connect to anything, but that's a little bit different.
If they have to go through the process of describing it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could we go up? I'm a little slow on, where we talked about encumbrances. I expect that encumbrances, we will expect, legal disputes and conflicts are in a different category, different questions involved. I'd almost put encumbrances first. Are you aware of any encumbrances or any legal disputes or conflicts?
That's fine.
Otherwise, encumbrances gets kind of buried, and I'm guessing that would be the most common situation we'd have. It also tells them that an encumbrance is not a deal breaker.
Because of where we have it.
Yeah, like maybe a legal dispute would be.
Well, there's, even a legal dispute's not a deal killer.
Yeah, it's just something that has to get resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that on the front end, to say,
Yeah.
I've got to deal with Uncle
Kind of
Bob, who's got a
progressive. I mean,
shotgun.
an encumbrance is kind of mild, a legal dispute, conflict is less mild.
Moving on to this table, we'll have them attach and fill out this table. So, Eric, do you want to describe what you were thinking with this?
Yeah, we're talking about like multiples, and too many of the questions, we'd have to have places for multiple things to happen. This is just a place for those multiple pieces to be listed with the parcel number. Gives us the landowner, if it's a right-of-way easement. And then something that we didn't have on the original one is I want them to present the total cost, how much they're contributing, which I don't think if any cities bring into us, I hate to see it with us, the county just fully funding it independently. Maybe there's some exceptions to that, and then the bond funds requested. So this just details the entire project, is the thought.
I'm not sure how your table works then.
Yeah, do you want,
They would fill in landowner, that particular address, and then, the parcel number, and they put, this landowner's getting $4,000. And then they would work through all the landowners that this project is involving.
I think if you, for the row that has the acquisition cost, contribution,
out
and the bond funds, just merge those cells.
Merge the cells on the left-hand side.
Could you put this as an attachment?
Yes.
And turn it to landscape?
Yeah,
So that you've got these three as separate columns on each line item.
Yeah, and, yeah, it does say please attach the following table, but we could say, please fill out the table, and this actually appears on the back.
Yeah, as an attachment, but I think each parcel is going to have an acquisition cost, municipality
Yes.
contribution bond.
Yeah, this is just the totaling. So this right here, easement purchase or purchase price, you're gonna have a number on every one of those. So you might have 10 of those. And then it'll total, but that's what you're saying, if we merge, if we,
Take the cells, yeah,
These
the
ones.
cells over on this,
all 4 columns on the left,
Yeah,
on the left,
going
Oh.
left, yeah.
This way.
not from there, yeah, from the one row below that. And then maybe if we put 2 rows, it would clarify that there's multiple rows there.
You gotta include the cell with the text in it too.
Oh, well, I'm saying you wouldn't, I'm not understanding what you're doing.
Well, let me,
Like that.
no. Do an undo. So you had it right the first time, you just didn't go over far enough to the right column. So 1 row down. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
now include the total acquisition column.
Oh gosh, I don't know what's happening.
That's weird. We're trying to merge those 4 columns, not 5, but 4.
Oh, just until total acquisition cost. Those 4?
Correct. And then do that for the other 2.
Gotcha.
And then let's put at least 2 rows above that, so
Yeah.
people know that there's like multiple rows. And to Jody's point, we could even, put this as a table. The table's actually on the back of this.
Okay, we can do that.
Or we could, tell people, use the following example and provide this
Provide it,
information as an
yeah.
attachment.
As long as
or something.
they're getting what it is, yeah.
Please attach a table with the following information.
Yep, I like that.
going back, but also in this, not sure I really care about total acres, but I do like the linear feet.
Gets a little confusing on total acres in that easements are, yeah.
I'm guessing that we'll have legally described easements.
Yeah, I like the acreage. I think we should keep it. It's 2 components to a trail. And knowing the acreage is, I don't know, I think that's relevant.
Okay.
Okay, if we're doing,
Why is
if
it
that's,
relevant? Excuse me, why is it relevant?
Well, it tells you how much
Feet
land
or-
you're
feet or
buying.
miles,
Yeah,
not distance. I mean, if there's 2 acres or 500 acres, how is it relevant for for a trail?
because you might not pay $1 million for 2 acres, but you might for 500 acres, for example.
or would I pay $1 million for 2 miles long, 12 feet wide?
Acres is how people typically look at the total land that they're
How much
buying,
land we're talking about.
as far as pricing it.
But you're asking for an easement, but you're not gonna do a 10-acre easement, you're gonna do a 6-foot easement.
Yeah, the easement adds up to a certain amount of area, which I'm saying is relevant.
I don't see the harm. in it.
I'm okay with that, but I think I would like it on each individual landowner then.
We
If
could add it to that, no
If we had
problem.
5 landowners, I'd like to know how many acres each one has.
And this, I think this is gonna end up being landscape in the end, so that may be the reason to put it show it at the back, but,
Can do something like that.
yeah.
Because I'd like to know that,
Probably put it I would move that row to after parcel number.
I still don't understand why you want acres for a trail. I'm
The
missing-
main thing I want it for is, what are we paying per acre? And does that match market rates?
but it's not going to match market rates.
Yeah.
What is it gonna be?
Okay, I've got a 40-acre chunk, and I want to have my easement follow this hill right through the center of the property.
Mm-hmm,
So it's gonna cut that property into two pieces with a blank in between.
mm-hmm.
That will more than reduce the per acre
So
value.
you're gonna overpay per acre for that.
You will.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that, I'm just curious as to what it is. That's why I would wanna know acres.
I still don't understand why.
Yes,
Sorry.
I think,
Talking about distance,
yeah,
miles,
we have total linear feet.
not 15 acres, sorry.
But it's a square footage that you're actually buying. You're not buying the linear feet, you're buying so many total square feet,
If
right?
you're going through an easement, you're not buying anything.
Well,
You're getting
the
an easement.
easement's still gonna be a square footage easement.
There was a scenario raised of maybe a hillside that has a
Yeah.
switchback trail on it. In that case, maybe acres would be relevant. They can lay out the trail the way they want. If it's a 12-foot wide path along the Bonneville shoreline, then
But when the
the
city
the
came,
value is in the length, not the width at that point.
when the city came to me and they wanted to put acquire a piece of my property for a sidewalk that would be along the road, it was a square footage that they were buying. They were very specific about the square footage they were buying. They didn't say, we need,
But did you
50
buy it or did you just get an easement?
they bought it,
Okay.
and they didn't say, this is for this 50 feet of linear thing. They said, we're buying this many square foot, we're paying you this much per square foot.
And this is the legal description.
Yeah.
City did that at our property too. They bought an easement for a sidewalk and paid us for the easement, then they put a sidewalk there, so they own it, nothing else can go there. So it's kind of the same in that
Yeah.
situation.
If we want to take it off, I really don't care. I like it, but
It's
So-
not gonna hurt to have it there.
Do you want to have acres or square feet of easement? Would that clarify things?
I don't know that it helps answers Dave's questions, but I think
yeah,
it's fine.
here's the reason the square foot could be a little more applicable, like piece of property landlocking some trails in Logan is about, they wouldn't need more than 12 feet and it wouldn't be more than about 20 feet long. It's 240 square feet.
I would agree. I think generally if we're gonna ask for area, square feet will likely be a more accurate number than acres.
It would be like point da-da-da-da-da.
What about in a situation where there is a vacant lot that we want? So but it's going to be bought at developed lot price versus agricultural. So, and it may be significant enough to make that lot unbuildable, if that's a word.
It happens quite a bit.
Yeah. What, do we have to buy that whole lot at that time?
Sometimes you can get an adjacent landowner to take the additional space.
Excuse me, what? I lost, what'd you say?
The back of the lot, there's a vacant lot, and we want 12 feet across the center of it.
Yeah,
We may have to buy the whole lot, not just a 12-foot wide easement. Because who would want to sell a 12-foot easement and have 2/10 of an acre parcels left?
You may have to pay for the whole lot, but not acquire it. And that price might be 90% of the whole lot price or something, and
Yeah, that's, but I think you'd still, at that point, who would want to own the other 10%? Maybe an adjacent landowner?
neighbors, yeah.
but why would a trail spend that much money for a 12-foot easement? Why would you spend that much money?
Because it's the 150 feet that connects two worlds.
there's an example of that in my neighborhood. There's a lot, there's a trail right through the middle of it, and the rest is up, the city just maintains the two sides. And it was so that you could bring a bridge through to connect the neighborhood to the park.
Would say, at the end of acres or square feet, add of easement, acres
Okay.
or square feet of easement.
But a lot of these are fee simple.
Oh,
Area?
yeah, that's good. I didn't want there to be confusion with,
We could take of
you
off
know,
there, acres per square feet area. Can we?
And can we also put in linear feet?
we've got that on
So
the
we can
previous.
have that.
It is
Well, you're
under-
looking for per person. Per person, per,
Your feet of trail.
We'll end up merging down below, but you could do that later. One thing I think these discussions are doing is it's making us more prepared for what we might see.
no, we won't be prepared. We're gonna get all kinds of screwball stuff. Didn't expect it.
I'm on 2 of the meetings on the other side of these, and so I do think that we're addressing a lot of it, meaning with the cities.
Okay, we ready to jump into section C?
Yes. Okay, provide a map of easements and trail. Do we want,
I really like that one.
okay, is easements still, or yeah, I guess easements is applicable.
Throw the word proposed in there.
Yeah, I like that.
Can we also put in there with connections to existing trails or showing, I want to see where it's.
Showing existing trails.
Yeah,
And we've limited it to easements here. I don't know that we can say, provide a map of the proposed.
I would maybe just propose trails
Okay.
Yeah.
instead of propose easements.
yeah, I'm fine with that.
I like that. Showing existing.
Trails or trail connection at the end.
Maybe showing any existing trail connections.
And existing trail connections.
Okay. We good with that one?
Okay,
Okay. Are the
Lance,
proposed,
if we go through this, if anything is like you've seen from other applications you've had to fill out or anything that we're crazy on, let us know.
are the proposed properties currently on the county or city trail master plan or currently being considered for an amendment to that plan? Please explain.
I'd like to take out or currently being considered for the amendment to that plan.
Okay.
The only reason that
Kinda
was in
subjective.
originally was that it was, the county master plan was undergoing a review and there was already a number of amendments considered. Did that get completed?
We haven't started yet. It'll happen next year or 2.
But you've got amendments you want to add?
Yeah, there's some, mostly to bring ours into alignment with what the cities have done. So when the master plan was first created 5 years ago, most of the cities didn't have their own plans, and now 5 years later, most of the cities do, and more are coming every year. So we just want to amend our plan to reflect what the cities have done. They have better ideas for the specifics than we at the time did.
The reason I'm wanting it pulled is because,
I know what you're saying.
oh, great, we've got this, oh, we're gonna amend our plan, so now it's part, and so there'll be this perception that we're getting extra points because it's part of the master plan, or somebody's brainchild is that it would be.
Yeah.
I guess they say no and then they have to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a,
It's not the master plan, but this is an alternative because the master plan, we couldn't execute on the master plan.
I mean, if a project
Yeah.
is supported enough, I suppose.
Okay. Are all of the properties for the proposed trail on this application? Can the trail be completed? If not, do the properties allow for meaningful contiguous use of the proposed trail?
This is adding 600 feet to the current Logan Trail, River Trail.
Yeah.
And it's meaningfully contiguous because of that.
Okay.
Do the proposed trail properties contribute to the connection of previously unconnected communities by way of active transportation?
This is the goal of the UDOT.
Okay.
How do the proposed trail properties contribute to the safety of active transportation?
Not sure I understand that, if I were
This
filling
is,
that
this
out.
is, for example, the Smithfield to Richmond, where your only option is to go on the highway.
So there is a drop down, and the options for this is trail is separated from traffic, trail is adjacent to traffic, and trail is on the road. And then they could explain what the situation is, so,
The drop-down list explains it.
okay.
But if the trail's on the road, we wouldn't be buying an easement. The county already has the easement.
Possibly, I mean, I can think, like, we think of like the Minden Road, for example, there may not be enough of an easement there to put in the kind of trail that you would like to have, you know, that's wide enough, or that sort of thing, so maybe there are certain circumstances where you would need another easement.
But that's something that's part of the road that we wouldn't be participating in.
Oh, if it's on the road, you mean on the road itself, yes.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Trail is on the road.
I don't understand the drop down particularly.
So they would just, I guess, they would select it. This came from the scoring card, so I just selected the options, or put in the options that were on that.
And when you did the scoring card, what was your intention with these?
I don't know. I guess if there was a higher priority to have a trail separated, that would be a way to distinguish how
So
the trail
The
is.
problem currently is that the trail is on the road.
Okay.
Is that what it's saying? I don't know what the drop down is saying.
I think I don't.
How I would read it is if you'd read this and go, how is proposed, how to contribute to safety, the active transportation, and you select the whatever one on the drop down applies to the proposed project that it is. And so I think you might be
What I
right.
was looking for, so I wrote the original question,
Okay.
and then someone else did the drop downs. My thing was how this, like, right now the only option is to be on the, more explain, right now the only option is to be on the freeway, or on the highway.
The highway.
And this significantly changes it because now we are able to remove that traffic from the highway. I like to please explain almost more.
Okay. Yeah. So I can get rid of this drop down. That's not an issue.
I think what we're asking is this an alternative route other than on the road?
Yeah, but some of it can also be that the current trail is even dangerous in the way that intersects, or it's too steep, for example.
Then we need to broaden the active transportation part.
When I see,
I'm assuming that means motorized vehicles.
me too.
Maybe it doesn't.
Active transportation is self-propelled.
Yeah, okay.
Then let's be clear and put non-motorized.
Yeah. What are you using among the municipalities right now?
E-bikes is where it gets messy.
Weren't we using active transportation for a while?
Yeah, but different cities have different regulations around, like one wheels are motorized, but could be considered active transportation. E-bikes have different types, so some are just pedal assist, so still, you still have to pedal, but it makes it easier, and there's some you don't pedal at all, have to throttle, and the lines there.
So
everyone has-
scooters are a big one too.
What you've done here is probably fine.
Okay.
Should be motorized though, right?
No, the safety of active, non-motor, active meaning you're propelling yourself, you're walking yourself, you're,
I like it with non-motorized in there.
So is an e-bike motorized?
Active transportation refers to a type of mobility within the transportation realm.
Does it
And
refer to riding a
means-
bicycle,
It does.
walking?
yes.
All of those non-motorized forms of transportation, yeah.
Contributes to the safety of, I was thinking of the safety of the vehicles.
No, it's the
But-
safety of, it's the
But we're-
safety
We're
of.
talking about the
That
safety
mode
of
of
the trail
transportation,
users.
yes.
Yeah,
Good there?
I think so for now.
Okay.
okay.
Give,
got it.
give me an example to that last one.
Learning the lingo.
The active transportation?
The whole statement. How does the proposed trail properties contribute?
Well, again, you're buying, if you bought a right-of-way from Richmond to Smithville, it would significantly change the safety of active transportation. Because if you've taken that route, you have to, going one way, you have to cross 4 lanes of traffic. I've done this multiple times on a bicycle. 4 lanes plus the turning lane that you have to cross in order to go one of your directions.
Okay, but for this stretch that we're proposing,
Yes.
this individual stretch, how would it?
It will pull traffic off of that is now required to be on the highway to a safe, separated trail.
So it's providing an alternative route.
Yes.
Why don't we say that?
There's multiple ways that this could be answered, though. It could be that right now, your only option is to cross, let's take, for example, the new trail that's going under Main Street and connecting east and west Logan,
At 600 South.
600 South. That is contributing to the safety of active transportation because they no longer have to cross Main Street. Above ground, they're able to use this new trail to go to bypass Main Street.
Okay, taking with what you just said, could we put parentheses, alternative routes off of main roads, navigation of intersections, things of that nature to kind of make sure that the question seems really vague to me if not.
Yeah.
I think it would be vague if you're not familiar with the term active transportation.
And these are.
And I am not.
And I know because I'm on the call with all the cities on this, and they all know that they're all using this
Yeah.
terminology. You're on that call, right?
Yeah, this isn't for laymen, this is for people that actually know what that means.
Yeah, the municipality is submitting this
I'm curious, why is the word active in there?
because it's the term that's used in those meetings.
Why? What is inactive transportation?
Sitting
You're
in a
pushing on
car.
the gas pedal.
Yeah. Active transportation is human-propelled transportation.
Okay.
So it's not,
I'm just saying, some of us on the
Human-
committee
heart rate,
Yeah.
your
are
heart
lay.
rate changes.
Yeah,
Now,
I'm just saying,
that
like, in
explains it.
terms of.
Thank you, I understand.
Yeah,
Definition.
yeah, but
Yeah.
for us to interpret it,
Yeah,
I can see how that would evolve that way.
he can
And you can put
move your
et
question
cetera.
Yeah, you could move your question mark to the end then.
after the
I haven't put
preface.
an et cetera in there. Would you put it, is that what you said?
That's what I said.
Yeah, Jody said.
Okay, we good on that one?
Got it.
I think so.
Okay, perfect. Please describe the type and condition of the proposed trail.
This was brought up last time, I think it's a good one. It's, is it paved, is it the 12 foot, is it Bonneville shoreline dirt?
Yep.
Above Providence, are they considering dirt trail for Bonneville shoreline or paved, or do you know?
Well, there is Bonneville shoreline there,
There's a dirt road there now.
The deer fence?
the deer fence.
Part of it, yeah, part of it is on private property, part of it's
Yeah,
not.
I think
It's
some
not-
of it's with easement,
I don't think it's secured yet, or
yeah.
most of it, some of it.
It has variable status.
Yeah. But are they anticipating that would remain a dirt trail?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, Bonneville Shoreline Trail has to stay non-paved, or else it will be designated as Bonneville Shoreline Trail by the state.
oh, I didn't know that, okay.
Do we want to be clear on number 6, that the city has budgeted to complete and maintain?
I think that's 9. So,
So let's move 9 up under,
Okay.
up by 6.
Thank you.
I like moving 9 up. 9 is the new 7.
Yep. Okay. Are we good with both 6 and 7 now?
Is the funding for the currently budgeted? Do we need to say approved budget? When you say budgets in cities, municipalities, sometimes that's kind of soft money, not hard money.
Okay.
Are we on number 7?
Yeah, the old 9.
Okay, are we talking about budgeting for the trail easement or the trail development?
The development, that probably needs to be on there, right?
Could we put development / improvements?
Or should we just say is construction funding for the proposed trail?
That's good.
Is construction funding? Is that what you wanted to put?
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, small c.
Oh, you're right.
For the proposed trail development?
For the
Currently
proposed trail.
budgeted.
Keep currently.
Do we want to know the source of funds?
Does the next question, could we incorporate that, or does it ask that? Please describe any project partners. We could at least, if that doesn't ask that already, that could probably be crafted to get your answer.
Do you want this part to be a separate question?
Probably.
I'm okay with it being the same, because it is the funding question, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would like under 7 very directly, what is the source of these funds? You know, I'm hoping Santa Claus
What-
brings them to me.
What is the source and percentage of these?
Well, we want to, from our perspective, we want to make sure that they're 100% funded and that they have funds to do it. And it's just not going to be an idle.
Sometimes though there's opportunistic, but but we can discuss that with their proposal, right? You brought that up before. Sometimes you have to piece this thing together.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes for 7?
I think it's okay for now.
Okay. Number 8, what is the expected time frame to complete the proposed trail?
Okay.
Okay. Are easements in this proposal perpetual? And then if in the works, please explain.
What does that mean if in the works? Please explain.
If they're working on I think there was a conversation about how they can work on getting it perpetual.
Yeah, I think, well, when we talked about it, last time, I think there was some concern that we wanted municipalities to have the ability to come and do some preliminary applications and discussions in case not every property owner was on board, or just so that we could be involved in the process early on.
Thought we kind of shot that down.
Well, I think that would be pre-application,
Yeah.
Okay.
but
What are the options in the drop down there?
Easements are perpetual. Easement is currently not perpetual, but in the works, and easements are not perpetual.
I think our use of these drop downs from the thing.
Yeah, we can get rid of them, right? Okay.
Send those, yeah.
But I think
I'm not sure we need that question, to be honest.
doesn't the easement have to be perpetual?
I would think so. I mean, I don't think we're looking to fund the project without a
Well,
perpetual.
is that what, that's the reason for the question, is it
If that's what the meaning of the question is, then let's go up to those first 3, add this question up there.
Okay.
Is the municipality requesting this agreeing for perpetual care of this trail?
hang on, let's discuss this. I mean, I guess what are the options? And do we ever see any other options? Like, because maybe it doesn't even need to be a question, right? If we think all easements are perpetual.
Well, I think we're talking about the maintenance of there's 2 things. Yes, it has to be perpetual,
Yeah,
but it also, the maintenance and care of it has to be agreed to be perpetual care and maintenance.
perpetual and care and maintenance is under the municipality as opposed to with the landowner. One's addressing a agreement with the landowner. Landis, have you ever seen a non-perpetual easement?
Yeah, not typically for trails, but there are construction easements. So we put in a trail, we need 10 feet right away for the trail, but the construction's gonna be doing earthwork that will extend beyond that 10 feet. We'll get a construction easement for 16 feet, whatever we would need, and that would have a time limit of 2 years or whatever, at which point it would return.
To just the smaller easement?
That's where I've had worked with those. So they do exist, temporary easements.
Where I think of a perpetual easement, I come to you and you say, well, I don't want to commit it to this for eternity, but I'll give you a 50-year lease or a 20-year lease.
Kind of like the Forest Service does in some of the properties.
Exactly.
Do you have a lease like that at Stokes Nature Center?
99 years, but yeah.
99, but it's worth having.
Not perpetual.
Well, if we ask the question, they say it's a 99-year lease, we want to look at it.
Well, if they say it's a 5-year or a 10-year lease.
That's why we ask the question, to know. And we say,
Then let's state that.
I mean, for me, I would want I would think we would only be considering perpetual easements if we're considering easements, but that's just my opinion.
Unless they have well, no, we don't want a renewable clause in it.
Yeah, I think we're trying to avoid more work.
So do we want this on the very front end? It just seems odd in the front end with everything else we're asking, but if we are.
To the extent that it can be one of the first 4 questions where there's a caveat after that that says, if you answered no to any of these questions, your application is not,
That's why I suggested it come up there, is it?
right? I think that's where it belongs if we're gonna do it.
Would we ever see an application from a lessee that has a 99-year lease on land?
Usually if you do, there always pretty well has to be kind of a built-in renewability clause.
Do you know if you have a renewability? You do have renewability on it.
And I don't think they're gonna take it back, but.
But there are properties that they have, like the
With the
nunnery.
homes and things like that.
Nunnery went back, right?
No, it's still for sale.
Because the lease went up and they didn't renew, or what happened there?
The people that owned it didn't want it anymore.
And they walked away.
Yeah.
But like some of the easements for seasonal homes close to the river, sometimes they came back in and says, no, we're not going to renew that because you're too close to the river's moved. And they will revoke those.
Another answer to my question would be that we would be dealing with the landowner, not the lessee.
Right. I would, at Stokes, I would not have the authority to sign this. The Forest Service would have to sign it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it wouldn't matter.
Same as the bank encumbrance or something, yeah. The landowner would have to subrogate, is that the word?
I'm just thinking of, there may be situations where I own a piece of property up on Providence Bench that the roads and stuff aren't up there right now, but 20 years down the road, I may want to develop that as, and so, yeah, for 20 years, you can have a trail, but after that 20 years, I got the right to revoke that. We don't want that.
I thought we kept if you answered no to any of these questions.
No, we got rid of that one.
Because of the one that was yes.
Oh, I thought we were just moving it up
Just
after the
revoke
3.
it.
That's what I thought.
And, let me go back.
Yeah, I think we're just moving that up
Okay.
above that last 4th one. Now it's
That was a yes.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
There you go.
there is a good chance they're encumbered, right?
And now slide the easement ones up above that.
Please explain if not. Well, no, we don't even want, please explain.
Yeah.
I think there may be times I'd want to hear, in other words, our actual proposal when the state comes in is to go this other route. This gets us through the next, until that happens. And it's cheap. I don't know. But
Well, I think they can still complete the application, but bring it in for discussion.
Okay. Going back down.
I think that's where some of the staff may bring us something that said, Hyde Park called, here's the situation.
Okay,
So new number, yeah, your
is it 8 now?
10 becomes 9.
I think so. Yeah, did we?
I think here, would a private entity ever hold this at easement?
Should we, who will hold the easement? Yeah,
Who will hold the easement? I like that.
or title.
Yeah.
But I thought we'd already discussed that that had to be a municipality.
Yeah, but it could be
Or
the county is submitting it because it's in a couple of cities, and then they're saying like, these will be held by, I mean, they might explain who actually holds that easement.
Yeah.
We will hold it until the state takes it.
I think the issue I have is the private entity.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put a toll trail out there, and you gotta pay me 50 cents every time you ride your bike down it.
Okay, so number 10 now is kind of a, if the proposed project is not completed in a certain number of years.
This was just a placeholder.
Yeah, so I think Catherine brought a question up like this last time, that she wanted people to think about, so I threw it on there.
How would we put that? How would that be best communicated? Or is it communicated at the time of the funding?
I think you would probably say, if it's not funded in X years, the municipality would be responsible for reimbursing our fund for the amount of that.
Isn't that more something written out at the time of the check, or is it
I think so.
when the county approves it? What do they do on RAPs? This is very much in a RAPs realm.
Good question.
RAPS is a reimbursable grant. We have to submit all of our receipts before they give us the money, so we have to spend it first, and then we get it.
Okay. And so you never ever have it to where you're required to then.
Yeah, I have to prove I've already spent it before they'll give it.
But there is a time frame, right? They do want you to complete the
Within 2
project.
years,
Yeah.
we have to submit all of the receipts.
Okay.
If not, then they just never give us the money, so there's no moving back, they just never give it to us.
It could be some sort of an informative statement.
Okay.
I feel like there should be a time frame, right? Because if we're committing to a project, we're not giving the money up front, right? It's going to be part of a transaction. And we don't want to sort of hold money for a project for 5, 6, 7 years, right? We should.
Well, that's a statement on RAPS that they give us in our award letter, that you have been selected, here are the requirements of it. And then I have to choose whether or not I sign that letter and accept those requirements, but it's not in the application.
The one thing I was thinking was, I mean, if we needed something like this, should it be part of that schedule question? Is that number 8 now? What is the expected
Yeah.
time frame to complete the project? We could add, you know, the project is expected to be completed within 2 years or whatever we want to say.
Well, I think that's why we're asking that it's been funded up front. Because that's usually why it wouldn't be, is because there wasn't the funding for it.
Yep.
But
But
there's a
we're
lot.
not saying if you don't have funding.
Yeah, there's
for
a
construction.
lot of cases where once they have this, they'll be able to apply for outdoor recreation funds. That they,
I think once we've given the money, we're committed. I don't think we can peel the money back.
But we would give the money when we have the easement.
Yes, but I think this bridges over into improvements and maintenance. You know, fencing, whatever.
Yeah, what would be the best way to handle that issue, though?
I don't think you can.
You sign something when you accept it.
But
And all of my grants have requirements on them that if I don't spend it the way I say I will, I give the money back.
Mhm.
So that could be on a stipulation on the awarding of the money.
Who's
This
going-
is
who's
more-
going to police that?
The county. They do it right now with a number of, when they do issue a permit, they police it.
yeah, I think we'll just probably, if we issue the money, it will need to be under some sort of contract that fulfill requirements
Right.
and provide.
Probably
Like when
yearly
I've
reports.
received grants as either private municipality or county, normally I have to provide a quarterly report or something to show my status or progress on whatever I got funded for. And if I don't, that puts me at risk of losing those funds. And I think we'll probably have to do the same thing where,
So I'm Providence City and I don't get the improvements made in 5 years. Can you force Providence City in giving those funds back?
yes, you can. Because essentially you enter into a contract and they don't fulfill their end of the agreement, then they'll be obligated to return the funds.
And I see this as an opportunity to just, it's more of a heads up.
Heads up.
It's like, what is your expected time frame? Just so you know, we want the project completed in 2 years, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, and it could say, something awareness, yes, not these words, but just so you're aware, there could be a stipulation put on this to complete the project within a number of years in order to, in order to receive the money or.
Why don't you just take out the first part and just say this project is expected to be completed in 3 years? Make it a statement instead of a question.
I think it needs to be a statement one way or the other.
I think the statement is good, but I think it's also good to have the question, because
Yeah.
I want to know how they've planned it.
Well, haven't we hit that up above? Number 8, question number 8.
That's the one we're talking
So
about.
we're working on.
So then let's put the statement in parentheses. So we're asking how long do you think it's going to be, but then we're going to say, but I think we need to put a number in there right now, not leave it as a blank. 3, 5.
I wouldn't know how to come up with that number. Could be a trade-off, could be part of our weighting criteria. Something that's ready to go now would be higher priority than
Yeah,
something
we'd
that's 10
get
years
more
out.
likely to give you money.
Yeah. And then two, the standard pitch on easements is let's buy them now while they're cheap before the area develops. And even if the development comes later.
I know one thing that is happening with developments is the development. Isn't, Landis, is or Hyde Park, are they, when they do give you a development, they have the trail stipulated in there?
Yes, like a subdivision
Yeah.
plat, yeah.
I
It
don't,
should be, I mean, and that's ideal.
I don't think they can legally do that without compensation.
It could be part of the development
So
process.
you can, if somebody's developing, you can require trails as part of that development. It has to be proportional to the nature of the development, but you can require it.
But the county has to compensate.
I wasn't compensated.
Not if the property owner's developing. If the property owner's developing, it's an exaction. The county or city can require it as long as it's proportional to the nature of the services that the city provides.
Oftentimes they want to do it anyway because it increases the value of their development. But I was required to give certain amount of land on a development for sidewalk, for example, and they weren't giving me anything.
I'm consulting on a deal out west of Ogden in the new, and they were withholding approval of the subdivision because they wanted granting of a road along the east side. And it was deemed to be illegal for them to ask that without compensation and purchasing it.
Yeah, so as long as it's proportional, so if it's beyond the impact and beyond the proportion of the development, at that point, the government has to compensate for them.
So, but if this trail goes further than
The property.
then there would have to be compensation for it.
And essentially, how the law looks at it is that if somebody develops, they then have an obligation to provide the services needed to support that development. and the city can require them to do that without compensation. But if they have to provide regional amenities that are features that service more than just their development or beyond the services of their development, at that point, that's when they have to be compensated. And there's some grayness in that area. There's not a hard and fast line.
So in other words, it's a through connecting two cities, then the county would have, or the, whoever's giving the subdivision permit would have to compensate it because it's going.
It would depend a little bit, because there are needs, like that development would have needs for that trail, but.
If you have a trail shown on your master plan that crosses that property, there's not a taking there. If you're showing a 4-lane highway out in front along the edge of the property, it's not, that's the kind of exaction that's disproportionate, you know, to force that one landowner to build the 4-lane highway that also affects other properties.
I imagine
around
there
it
could
or
be a
something.
standard too of necessity, like a city could not do something that's kind of frivolous or over the top, not standard for the surrounding properties, but the continuation of the trail might be expected. I'm just guessing.
Part of infrastructure,
Yeah.
right?
That's where attorneys make good living.
And it seems too that when these things, if the landowner pushes this into the courts will side with the landowner more than we expect sometimes.
I know that on this, so far, landowners have been, it increases their value, and it hasn't been that big of a deal. It's like,
Yeah.
if I can give access to my community, it's to your problem, right? If you have access to the shoreline trail, or if you have to drive all the way around, that's totally different.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
The project is expected to be completed in, I almost worry that we put a 3 and so everybody waits till 3.
Yeah. I can tell you, as a person who is involved in municipal trail design and development projects, 2 years is plenty of time if you've already got the land or whatever.
I think my only hesitancy with this is, I think what will end up happening is that the council will want to enter into those actual agreements. And I think it'd be very appropriate for us to make recommendations on what that would be, but I think in the end, they're going to be the ones that make that decision on how quickly that money needs to be spent.
Why don't we simply evaluate it based on this rather than make the statement?
Well, why don't we just take that in parentheses right out and just say, what is the expected time?
And if they say 10 years, then we'll be like,
Yeah.
Yeah, a project that takes 10 years will be ranked lower than a project that takes 2.
We may just think it's a.
Unless it costs less.
economic. There's a value proposition.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we can remove 10.
okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's in the contract.
Then a little bit is this, who's signing this? This is a little bit different in terms of,
Should we put municipality, or should we just put project representative? Because you're right, it could be the county, it could be Landis that's filing this, or,
project representative and title. I think you'd want a title.
yeah.
Because I think on this, there'd be certain people that could sign it and people that,
I do think if you're doing it this way, you need to have something signed by each of the landowners, whether it be just a limited power of attorney or something of that nature.
if we go back and there's another table where the signatures are obtained, I don't know that they want to do it right here with the purchase price of everybody else. Maybe they do.
All I'm asking is, kind of like a limited authorization to discuss this with us, rather than having each landowner be a part of the agreement.
Yeah, we
I
don't
think-
want it.
I think you need to have a representation and warrant to each one, from each So when I start negotiate, if I'm a municipality, I'm negotiating with Chris on his property. Chris doesn't have to put dollar amounts or anything of that nature, but he needs to indicate that, yes, it's okay for us to pursue this. I don't want just somebody.
I can discuss this with my funding sources.
Yes.
What, that'd almost be a page that's attached, right? Please have each landowner sign this.
I don't really care about the dollars and cents, but I want to make sure that that somebody doesn't come in and just say, yeah, we've been talking to Fred and he's kind of with us.
Yeah. He loves this project.
Dr. Fred.
He doesn't love the project.
I just think that keeps us out of trouble. And the county council out of trouble.
Yeah, I think the intention is good. There should be some kind of landowner acknowledgement that the city is representing them in this proposal or something like that.
Is there someone on county staff that could throw together something relatively short on that?
It's probably at the attorney's office, right? Or something.
Yeah, a lot of times the development services may provide a first draft, but the attorneys will then fine tune it.
And I think you could maybe even put that up where it says, the landowner is willing and and see attached acknowledgement.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Up above.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, our purpose is that it just verifies that the landowner knows that they're seeking funding and discussing it.
Yeah. A little higher, right there.
Please attach landowner acknowledgements. You say landowner?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. And then this is just how they turn it in. So. And then Eric, you had 2 other questions, right?
Oh, yeah, a couple other questions in case you want these. And this is just, we don't need to put these in, but like what other communities or what other municipalities are affected by this? In other words, I would love for, if Logan City, North Logan is acquiring that canal trail, and they're like, this is access for Hyde Park to get to Logan and Logan users. And then the other thing is how many trail users. We've got counters on a lot of the trails, and so we actually know how many people utilize some of these trails. That'd be just a helpful description. So I don't know if we add another number, but I just wanted to throw that out. I mean, it's almost more important than the length of the trail is that we know that, you have numbers on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, right? How many people use those, so.
Yeah, different places. Some county.
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I don't know if the landowner or the applicant would know that number.
Well, it'd be the municipality
Okay.
that have it. For example, Logan City has the trail counters that they co-op with you.
Yeah, the only ones that have it are us, Logan City, and the Forest Service.
Okay.
And the Cash Trails Alliance is looking to buy some of that would just be.
It'd just be an information
We
that
could
they could
ask
add.
for an
We could leave that in, for them to put in the description, on both of those.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
That was my first thought.
So that's part of it. A
Those
good
could be-
grant writer is gonna be including that.
I think that's important for the open space as well. How many people will ever lay eyes on that?
Yeah.
Put a number down. Is it 100 or 10,000?
The other question I had was, does it make a difference to us if this is recreational or commuter trails?
The ideal is it both.
But there's obviously some that, this is my recreational, but yet, no, this trail goes through from Logan to Mendon, and there'll be people that will be using this as their seasonal transportation portal.
I think it does matter from the sense that we would be interested in both kinds of projects, right? A project that serves a larger population or connects communities or whatever is gonna have other funding sources available to them for active transportation, for example, that, maybe a recreational trail might not. But both are valuable.
And I find that the better the recreational trail is, the more it's used for commuting. I know people come and they come from the Wellsville direction and they grab the Logan City Trail once they get that far. And if the Logan River Trail kept extending, that would be used more for commuting because.
But is that just, hey, I want to get off the busy road?
Mm-hmm.
Primarily?
Yeah. Like I'm safe if I move to this trail.
Yes, there's some planning theories out there, essentially that if you want people to use active transportation corridors or use these for commuting, you have to make them feel safe and also make them feel pleasant. And so a lot of times these trail corridors end up serving dual purposes because people who are commuting would rather take a couple minute detour to use something that feels safer and is more fun or beautiful or whatever it might be, because it's just better to use. And so people are going to likely be using a lot of these facilities for both.
The other question I have is, does the width of the easement make a difference for maintenance, for, is it a 3-foot wide versus I know why the state wants a 12-foot wide, because then they can send a paving truck down it to repave it and to maintain it. Does that make a difference, the width?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
do we want to?
I don't think we want to dictate it, because I think it's going to vary depending on the type of trail.
But do we want to, width of the trail, is that something important on the application?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Should be part of the description, the type and condition of it.
So go up to number 2, maybe? Up, or, excuse me, B.
Number 6.
Up in the table, we kind of bounced around between acres and lengths.
A little
but-
bit, just where we have total acres and linear feet. Is it?
B, section B.
Section B, okay.
Proposed width?
Trail width and easement width.
That'd be nice.
It's BST, it's not, you look at it one way, if it's going from here to Mendon, it matters differently.
Yeah. Well, but also accessibility for maintenance. If you're having to get permission from adjacent landowners every time you need to go in and fix it where it's washed out.
Any developments on Hiram Mendon route?
I haven't heard, I should reach out. I don't think we know if they've gotten a grant yet to pipe it.
There's a grant they might get it piped, in which case.
Well, I know the Mendon Road, they're talking of piping the borrow pit to gain width, I think, for a trail, aren't they? Isn't that the?
I haven't heard about a trail project, no piping on the road. No, Matt would like to see the road widened anyways.
Okay,
Yeah.
did we get through our level one
We did.
application?
Yeah, that's some pretty good progress. These workshop style meetings have worked out fairly decently.
Okay, so do we want to vote like we did the last time to accept this as the proposed level one trail application? Does that make sense?
I think what we're missing right now, and we could vote with this exception, is just that acknowledgement from a landowner. But we could,
Yeah, I think that can come later.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be,
Well, and the way we've written it, it doesn't have to be a specific one. It's, the municipality has to give us some sort of acknowledgement from the landowner, the way we've put it in that application up here.
that's right.
I do think it says, please see the attached.
Please
Please
attach
attach
the landowner.
Landowner's acknowledgement.
Oh, please attach.
So that puts the onus back on them, so we don't have to go to the county attorney and say, write this up or whatever.
I mean, if we need to go that route, and I would think the county attorney will chime in at some point, as we figure out what these agreements are gonna be or whatever, might need to spell that all out, but.
But even an email from the landowner saying, yeah, I'm good with this, I'm willing to consider it, that's good enough.
Yeah. So, I would propose we go ahead and vote on this then. If somebody wants to make a motion, if you're ready.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
But let's put the same caveat we did on the last one, and if there's some obvious editing and so forth, that Chris, you have the ability to do minor
Okay,
wordsmith edits, et cetera.
okay.
Does that help you usually? So we don't have to bring it back if there's a one-word change. Non-material changes.
I second that.
Okay. You have what you need for that, Megan? Okay, so we have a motion and second to, do we accept or approve, or what would be the most logical thing?
Probably recommend to the county council.
Recommend the level one trails application to the county council.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So we have two level one applications ready to go, we think, certainly ready to go to the council. I'll anticipate making a brief presentation to the council next Tuesday, and,
I just got confirmation you're on the agenda, so.
okay, great, great. But you'll still let me know timing-wise or
Yep.
whatever. Great. Anything else, committee members, for now? Sounds like, I think our next meeting's October 2nd. We'll start digging into level one criteria.
Okay.
And are we still want to stay focused on moving these items along as opposed to also incorporating some presentations, learning sessions, that sort of thing?
Is there any learning session that we feel is pivotal at this point?
You know, maybe a couple of points I can make. One thought is, hearing from the state Utah Outdoor Recreation Program might really be helpful as far as the trails component goes. So I think we were anticipating that as our next organization. So that's a possibility. That's the highest on my priority list, so that's one point I wanted to say. The other thing maybe worth mentioning, if I haven't forgot it, is, I noticed when we got that notice about Lee Ray McAllister, right? And I don't know if anybody else did this, but I went to the state's website, we had a link in there, right? But then I started exploring around, and one of the things I found out, and I'm kind of reflecting on our conversations so far as a committee and our meetings and that sort of thing, but the state there's a 19-page guidance document to fill out an application, that's similar to ours or whatever. And in there, I mean, they say, this is what we're looking for, this is not what we're looking for, a lot of detailed kind of stuff. It just reminded me, because I feel like sometimes we have discussion, or we make points about how we're gonna take this information that's being supplied and make a decision. And the state has this 19-page process that just basically says, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna evaluate your project and, come to a decision on whether or not we support this. It just reminded me, I wonder if we're gonna get to a point somewhere in the process where we need something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know. So,
That's where I'd like to have feedback from the council,
yeah.
to say, yeah, we know, we want you guys as a committee to either to unanimously approve making this a recommendation to us or not. Yeah, you can use your criteria, and we want to be building that criteria, but I don't think we're to the place where the state is.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think the state really has
An
a
application handbook, I think
yeah,
is what
but
they call
does
it.
the state have a committee that also reviews, or is it pretty much?
They have a committee.
Yeah.
A deep committee, don't they?
I think so, and I think, in that, I didn't read 19 pages, because I was like, oh, wow. It kind of surprised me, but it kind of spelled out what's expected, what, from a project, and what's going to get funded.
I think you ought to take on that writing our 19-page
Yeah.
document.
I was gonna say, there is.
I'm not volunteering.
There is a financially paid person to write that document.
There's a risk to bringing ideas up.
I don't think Matt has anything to do.
Okay, all right, I'll just leave you with those thoughts, and we'll just
Do
proceed
we know
accordingly.
anything about that property, Cash? I saw
Evans Ranch. I don't have any details about that.
That's the other thing I tried to do on the website. I'm like, oh,
I couldn't find
I'd
anything.
love to go see what other projects they funded over the last 20 years. And there's nothing, which is weird, because, for example, there are a number of other state programs that receive funding, like the watershed restoration initiatives, and you can go back and you can, over the 20 years or however long it's been, you can find every single project that got funded, application, everything about that project, but not on Lee Ray McAllister, so.
It'd be nice. It seems like if we don't have to invent the wheel, it would be handy. Go back and
I
see
would
what's
think the
been done and why it's
legislatures,
been done and how it's been working out.
yeah,
Are there any regrets?
Well, and to me, it's a little bit, the report back to the public.
here's how we're spending your money.
Yeah.
And the value we're getting back, yeah.
I'm sure there's some
There's got to
place.
be.
But
Yeah.
There was, I wonder if their annual review or semi-annual, whatever it is, would be public.
I just think, like, as we go forward doing this, a really nice list of what those are, because I've seen that on a few different county sites, is like, here it is, here's what it is, here's a picture of
Yeah.
the piece of property, here's the trail that you got. I mean, I think that's what we owe the public.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good discussion, committee members. All right, I look forward to reporting back on the meeting with the council. If there's nothing else, we'll stand adjourned.